Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. And for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Tim Mills. I'm also known as the Harmonic Atheist. And I am hoping very much to start conversations around the idea of having an actual atheist president. I'm sure we've probably had one before, but someone that had to be in the closet about it, probably, and maybe just the inner circle knew, but using religion, as they often do, for the sake of votes or what have you. But I'm looking to be the first atheist president that is open and vulnerable about the topic. No holds barred. Let's talk about it. I did escape mythology, and I'm proud of it. It's been a crazy journey. And I think the best thing for our culture is to be able to push that conversation further and further to say mythology should not be at the decision making level of our country. Our country needs to move to a more secular perspective, and the faster we can do it and the more thoughtfully we can do it, the better the generations will have it. So, on that note, I'm going to be spending a lot of my time just bringing up different topics, not long, not for more than probably a few minutes for some of them, but just bringing up topics that are near and dear to my heart and hopefully establishing over time the things that are going to be, if I do end up, pie in the sky, but you got to try, aim big. If I do end up becoming an actual candidate, things are going to become part of my main platform, and the topics it'll be just right front and center of what I talk about on the stage and so forth. So today's topic is going to be about hurting children. When you look at the idea of physical punishment, spanking, whacking, whatever, swats, whatever you want to call it, the ways that our culture has allowed physical discipline to become part of the norm is staggering. It's concerning. It is horrifying. It's abuse, and it needs to stop. And the fact that we have come so far in some ways in our society, we've made a lot of strides for women, for people of color. There's still a long way to go in those arenas, obviously. But at the same time, it feels like we haven't really gone very far with protecting children. And I'm going to talk another day about child trafficking, but today's topic is strictly going to be about physical discipline that is completely allowed at this time by our society. When you look at what people are allowed to do in our society to kids, it often includes, of course, straight up spanking on the bottom, but there are cases where people are allowed to do a lot worse, including pulling kids around by the collar, pulling them by the hair, dragging them across the room, hitting them in the leg, not just the bottom part of the leg, the butt part, but the down the leg, in the back, scratching, pinching, twisting arms. And when you look at that stuff, there's cases where CPS gets involved and does a little research and then says, we're not going to push forward with anything here. Just please get some counseling. The idea that that is not an issue in this society in all states is beyond horrifying to me, especially when you look at some of the things it does to kids. I mean, you're looking at certainly the issue of just they're being physically hurt. Sometimes there's bruises, sometimes there's not, but they're being physically hurt. They're being physically hit. We need to move away as a society from the idea that kids that are acting out, that the best thing that they need is to have their will broken and to be physically hurt to do that. I think there's an incredible amount of research that's been done to show that the physical aggression against a child is ultimately very harmful, and it doesn't produce the outcome that you want. It may have a short-term effect because of the fear factor, but the harm that can occur in these cases can be lasting, can be lifelong. It can lead to emotional concerns and issues with the child as they grow up and they realize that my body's not safe. That comes out in their behavior. It comes out even in schooling where they don't want to do school or they find it difficult because they're so distracted. And that makes sense. They're distracted by the fact that they don't feel safe in their own skin. When you add in, of course, other issues, if there's issues of poverty and anything else going on in the home, these kids are having such a rough time. And add in ADHD and other issues, and you're at times looking at situations where you have to say to the parents, you're not even spanking the child, you're spanking the ADHD, which is just probably a chemical issue in the brain. In some cases, you're spanking the situation where even though you're spanking a child, you're really disciplining the situation the child is in, which they have no control over, of course, whether it's, a broken home, siblings bullying them, kids at school hurting them in some way, lots of pressure to excel, and maybe they just can't. And so it becomes this wicked spiral downward. You add this all up, and then the kid acts out, and it's like you're not spanking the child's misbehavior. I mean, you shouldn't anyway, but you're not even doing that. You're just spanking the fact that they're responding as anybody would in a horrible situation with the outright sense of I need my voice, I need my power, I need my autonomy back, I need to feel safe in my skin, and I don't. And the aggression that we show towards kids, it ends up backfiring because in many cases their aggression escalates because they know how to fight back, and they should. Kids should have this sense of you shouldn't be doing that to my body. That should be part of what we teach kids. You shouldn't have the right to hurt my body. And just like we would say, if Uncle so and so comes over and wants a big hug, and you tell the kids, it's up to you if you give him a hug. If you Even if he's a really nice guy, he's not creepy. He's a nice guy, but it's your body. You get to decide if you give Uncle so and so a hug. Just like that autonomy is so crucial, that same autonomy needs to carry over into physical discipline. This is your body. It's your body. It's later on, it's of course your sexuality, but it's your body, and your ability to feel safe in your own skin is paramount to your growth and to your maturity. Just there's other models that we can pick for how to address behavior that doesn't work for kids brushing their teeth or going to bed or turning the tablet off. There's other ways we can address this. But the issue from a political and a nationwide standpoint needs to be that we need to move to a level nationwide where we say collectively, corporal punishment for children is wrong. It's toxic. It's unhealthy. It is a way of hurting not just their bodies, but their long-term growth. We are stunting children. And eventually you have to say, this is so inappropriate. This is so unhealthy and toxic that can't happen. Like in our society, we need to move to a place where, and I'm sure we will someday, that in far future, but that far future needs to be a lot sooner. We need to move our society to a point where collectively we all say, we have been wrong to do this. We are, to use the Christian word, we all used to use, repent of this, and we need to say there is a different path forward. And once we hit that crossroads and make that declaration to say going forward, this aggression towards children, this bullying, this physical discipline, it is now going to slowly, through a lot of discussion, but it's slowly going to move to a point of this is an actual criminal act. We're going to eventually criminalize hurting children physically on all levels. You just can't. You can't do it. And that, I think, is far overdue. I think it's a situation where we should have made these discussions front and center decades ago. And there were some really good discussions going on about human rights and about equality. And they kind of stopped at children. They really did. And children aren't being protected. And it's funny, you look at a lot of the Christian verbiage and they're all about, we want to protect the innocent, but then they beat the shit out of their kids. And it's like, well, you really want to protect the innocent? Start with your own children, of course. You're not protecting them. They're hurting. When you have kids who are screaming, to the gentle parent, to the respectful parent, to the non-aggressive parent, when you hear the kids screaming, please, please help me. The other parent's hurting me so bad. There should be alarm bells going off in your head. That parent that's hurting them is not safe. And the kids understand the difference. They understand the difference between a safe and an unsafe parent. They know which parent is the problem. And when you look at this as a nation, we have a lot of grieving to do. We have absolutely hurt our children. And just because some people want to keep it going, say, well, I turned out okay, and so did so and so. We all turned out okay. I needed it because otherwise I would have thrown rocks through windows. I needed someone to beat the shit out of me so that I could learn respect. As a society, we're gonna have people, naysayers are gonna say, no. This if you don't physically beat children, they will eventually do horrible things. They'll turn into little monsters. I will argue against that till the cows come home, and I will push for a much more gentle and thoughtful approach to parenting. But eventually, I want to get this over the finish line. I want to put into law that you can't physically punish children. You just can't ever, under any circumstances, no matter what. That there's other ways, and of course, we need to set in place programs to help parents. It can't just be we just pass a law. We need to have programs that help parents aggressively. I mean, parenting is one of the most beautiful phases of life, a beautiful privilege, beautiful for the children, beautiful for those of us who are parents. But we need to do better. We don't want to raise kids with depression who are open to harming themselves later, who deal with self-esteem and even suicide ideation, who at least deal with anxiety like crazy and potentially different development issues, socially, their behavior. It comes out. It comes out, and we need to give the future generations better than we had. We're not going to berate the last generations too much about this. It is what it was. It is what it was. It was what it was. It's what we all did. It's what we collectively as a culture have done for generations, for maybe arguably millennia. At this point, it's time. We've evolved our society, we've evolved our conscience, and this part of our conscience is just kind of sitting there saying, "You're better than this. You're better than this. You're better than this. Come on." And we're all just as a society saying, ignore that voice. No more ignoring the voice. If I'm elected the first atheist president, it will be one of my primary acts to make it put into law that we will make physical punishment of children a criminal act, not just when there's bruises. Any aggression against children will be considered a criminal act. And we'll set up programs, aggressive programs, to help people across this country to move toward a more gentle parenting style, to get more and more healthy themselves. We'll need to subsidize, of course, these programs and counseling to make sure parents can deal with this. And also that there are social nets set up if parents just can't do it. If to them, they have to hit their kids. We need to get the message out that those kids will still be safe in other homes. We don't want to pass the ball where, they're getting beat by their parents and then they go to a foster home and they're getting beat twice as hard in the foster home. We're not looking for that. We need to think through this carefully and thoughtfully, but come up with plans that ultimately end up protecting kids and keep them safe, no matter what their family situation ends up being. The future generations deserve better. And I think it's time for that challenge to be a nationwide challenge. It's time for us to collectively say, yep, we have neglected the weakest and most vulnerable among us, and we're no longer. We will protect children. Their cries, their whimpers, their tears they will not go to bed in tears anymore, saying, wow, I've been hurt. Wow, my body hurts so much from being beat. And my heart is hurting because there's nobody that I can cry to. I just have to cry myself to sleep. Crying yourself to sleep is one of the worst human experiences you could have, especially as a child. And I want to give the future better. Kids should feel safe in their own skin and in their own homes. So if I'm elected president, that'll be front and center. We'll be talking more about children in other contexts soon, but I just wanted to start with this one. And I hope that you will join me in that rallying cry, that this is part of what we do as a secular nation, as a secular society, a secular culture. This is what we do to evolve, to be better than ever, and to I think we'll look back on it and smile and say, how did we not have these laws in place? Like, how did it take us so long? It's like, so many of us, when you look back at like cell phones, smartphones, you just think, how did we ever live without this? This has like changed everything. And there'll be other technologies that'll come along and be like, how do we live without this? But this is a conscience issue. How did we ever live with such a seared conscience towards the needs of children? And once we pass it, I think within a generation, people will look back and say, I can't believe they used to do that stuff. I can't believe America used to beat the shit out of their kids all the time, and just says this is part of effective quality parenting. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff, and we're going to do better. So join me in that if you can, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks so much.